Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show on this first day of June 2021. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan coming to you from the National Weather Service. I'll be your host this evening for the show. And we had a lot of things going on over the weekend. First, it was very soggy across especially the southern and southeast portions of the state. And then we had a significant earthquake. A 6.1 magnitude earthquake struck late Sunday evening around 11 p.m. North of Anchorage, about 50 miles north of Anchorage in the Talkeetna Mountains, and caused quite a shake in Anchorage itself and surrounding areas. No other reports of any significant damage or anything. Nevertheless, though, we continue to have weather impacting the region, and we have a wind advisory in effect for the eastern Alaska range for south winds. 40 miles an hour, gusting up to 55 miles an hour, especially in through some of the gaps and passes there. And we anticipate that advisory will be in effect until this Tuesday night, until midnight, and then things should begin to diminish here as we head through the overnight and early Wednesday morning. And also to the north, we have for the south side, eastern Brooks Range, we have a winter weather advisory for snow above 3,000 feet for 3 to 5 inches of snowfall. It looks like some of the heavier snow will fall around Adigan Pass there near and above 4,000 feet. So keep that in mind. And that winter weather advisory is in effect until 10 a.m. Wednesday morning. Otherwise, we continue to watch the river breakup in the far north along the north slope and Arctic coast. Elsewhere, though, look south of the Brooks Range. The rivers are open, and by and large, we were very fortunate this spring to not have any really significant or major flooding, though there was the incident there that happened on the Buckland River. At Buckland, they did have some flooding that happened there, but other than that, so far so good. And looking up there along the north slopes, we'll continue to see the melting to occur now with the sun out full time in those areas above the Arctic Circle, and we do anticipate those rivers to be really opening up here over the next week. And if you do see something, if you're passing through one of those far northern remote rivers, especially flying overhead, if you see some flooding or significant ice jams, please report those to nws.ar.aprfc@noaa.gov. And if it's more urgent, you can call 1-800-847-1739. On the satellite imagery, we continue to see, starting with the southeast peninsula, continued stream of moisture coming up from the south. Over the weekend, Juneau set a record rainfall for Memorial Day, 1.48 inches of rain, nearly an inch and a half of rain. And for the weekend, they picked up over 2 inches of rainfall. And for the month of May, second wettest May on record for the Juneau area, with 6.91 inches of precipitation. Other areas, Anchorage picked up right around 3/4 of an inch of rain in some areas, 2/3 of an inch rain, 66 fell, with most of that coming on Saturday, May 29th. And as we look to the north, you can see lower clouds and areas of snow, enhanced clouds coming up there across the spine and south side of the Brooks Range where that snow is falling. Will continue at least overnight tonight before diminishing toward early morning. And then other areas of precipitation, showers continue down along the Alaska Peninsula, parts of the Kodiak Island, and also the Kenai. And you can see there is another kind of circulation there on the west end of the Gulf of Alaska, and that's just some additional moisture that'll be lifting northward here as we head through tomorrow. And meanwhile, southwest of Adak, there is another little stronger low in the North Pacific that is going to work its way east-northeastward and eventually emerge into the western Gulf of Alaska as we head into Thursday. In the meantime, here's the surface weather map this early Tuesday evening. Continue to see just these thermal troughs of low pressure and weak low pressure circulations from the southeast Alcan down back through the southwest parts of the state, with scattered showers popping up along there. Areas of light snow along and especially north of Brooks Range. And then also that low pressure well south of Kodiak Island continuing to spread some showers northward. And by later on tonight, we will see still scattered showers, though they tend to diminish with the loss of the daytime stronger heating. We'll see the snow there up in areas of the eastern Brooks Range, and then out over the Gulf of Alaska, still some areas of light rain lower cloud covering some patchy fog as the low pressure system is situated just south there in the North Pacific of the central and eastern Aleutians. Now going into the day on Wednesday, we are looking at still low pressure kind of lagging across the west side of the state with the potential for some patchy areas of snow along the north slope, along the spine of the Brooks Range northward. And then a few scattered showers up through the Yukon Valley back into the southwest with some snow showers in the higher elevations of the Alaska Range and the mountains throughout the southeast, as low pressure over the Gulf of Alaska gradually weakens with just kind of this lagging trough lifting a little northward and along the coast. But you can see the 980 low situated south of the eastern Aleutians. That'll be the main weather player as we head through Thursday. That's entering the western Gulf of Alaska, and that's going to send another surge of moisture northward up into southeastern portions of the state, across the places that really probably don't want any more rain, could use a little break, get some sunshine in. This will also keep some showers going across south central areas and down through the Kenai and back toward Kodiak Island out over the Aleutians. Now low temperatures Wednesday morning will be upper 40s to around 50 across the southeast, with 51 there at Ketchikan, 49 at Juneau, and then back further west, interior Glen Ellen to 38, and then going down the Kenai to Kodiak Island, lows generally in the lower 40s. Temperatures rebound back up into the stay in the 50s there throughout the southeast, but could squeak out 64 at Talkeetna and 62 at Glen Ellen, about 59 at Anchorage, as well as King Salmon, and then lows again mid-40s to the southeast inner waterways, and generally low to mid-40s across the remainder of south central areas Thursday morning, and a tad warmer, maybe a few readings getting back up into the lower 60s as we creep up the upper reaches of the Kuskokwim River Basin. And then along the Arctic coast, we are looking for lows tonight to be below freezing in the lower mid-20s. And as we go through the day tomorrow, around or a couple degrees above the freezing mark around the Arctic coast, up to about 63 at Fairbanks, and 53 there over toward Galena. And then as we head through Thursday morning, lows will dip back down into the mid-upper 20s along the Arctic coast, generally lower 40s through the Yukon River Valley. And then as we go through Thursday afternoon, a little bit warmer, could get back up to about, say, 64 at Fort Yukon and Fairbanks, and out toward the west, cooler there as we go out into the Seward Peninsula. Some areas still not much, a little bit above the freezing mark. And then finally going down along the southwest coast, we are looking at temperatures Wednesday morning to bottom out anywhere from about the upper 30s to mid 40s, with lower 40s down along the southwest peninsula and upper 30s there in the Aleutians. And then for Wednesday afternoon, high temperatures in the southwest interior, generally in the 50s. A few spots could approach 60, more likely though on Thursday, with highs extending down along the southwest peninsula, generally in the 40s to near 50 in a few spots. And then going into Thursday morning, low temperatures will generally be in the lower 40s across much of the interior southwest to a little bit above freezing there, Norton Sound up toward as we get up around the Nome area. And then temperatures on Thursday afternoon should get back up near 60, creeping upward along the Kuskokwim River Basin, and highs generally near 50 along the Alaska Peninsula and in the lower 40s out as we extend through the central and western Aleutians. And we're going to take a look now at the temperature outlook, the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook that's provided by the Climate Prediction Center, which is the branch of the Weather Service that does kind of the medium and longer range forecasting. And there is a bit of a change. We are looking for the southern areas to be a little bit above normal here, heading up into the first, second week of June. And in the north and west, slightly near normal to slightly below normal there in the west. There were areas that were actually enjoying above normal temperatures the past couple of weeks. And it's kind of a reversal too. It's been wet across south central areas in the southeast. It's looking to be a bit drier, at least precipitation to average a bit below normal, whereas it will likely average a bit above normal there along the north slope and as we head up along the Arctic coast. So In just kind of summarizing, we've had a rather soggy period here for the long holiday weekend across south central and southeast peninsula. And then we've seen, with the cloud cover and instability, scattered showers around, and those will kind of linger and stay with us here through a good part of the week across the southern half of the state, though it will not be raining all of the time. So keep that in mind and get out and try and enjoy the early June weather.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
It's aviation weather time, and if you are planning a flight here through this midweek, Wednesday morning we are looking at IFR conditions along the north of the Yukon River up toward the Brooks Range, and especially the North Slope and Arctic coast. Also across a good chunk of the southeast, as well as the Gulf of Alaska along Kodiak Island and the Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula out into the eastern Bering, including Nunavik Island and St. Lawrence, as well as portions of the Aleutians. And then by Wednesday afternoon, look for IFR conditions holding along the northwest and Arctic coast, as well as much of the Gulf of Alaska out there, northern areas, and much of the southeast, and then back out along and south of the Alaska Peninsula in through the eastern tip of the Aleutians. And then on Thursday morning, we'll see IFR conditions, especially the North Slope along the Brooks Range to the Arctic coast, as well as portions of the southeast, south central areas and the northern Gulf Coast to Kodiak Island down along the north side of the North Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula into the eastern Aleutians and much of the central Bering. And then finally on Thursday afternoon, IFR conditions will persist across the North Slope and Arctic coast, as well as the northern Gulf Coast from Yakutat on over toward Prince William Sound, and then also along the tip of the Southwest Peninsula in through the eastern half of the Aleutians. Past conditions Wednesday, Anaktuvik will see IFR conditions becoming MVFR, especially the south side for Wednesday afternoon, and then same thing at Adigan, IFR becoming MVFR, especially the southern entrance. Lake Clark and Merrill will generally see MVFR conditions give way to VFR conditions as we go into the afternoon. Same thing for Rainy Pass, MVFR to VFR, and also for Windy, as well as Isabel passes, MVFR becoming VFR by Wednesday afternoon. Mentasta should generally hold on to VFR conditions throughout the day on Wednesday. Tanita will see MVFR conditions become VFR, and then Portage should generally hold with MVFR conditions on Wednesday, while Chilkoot and White will see MVFR conditions deteriorate to IFR conditions, and that'll be the case across much of the southeast. All right, taking a look at freezing levels. Freezing levels across the North Slope are below 2,000 feet and near the surface. Areas south of the Yukon River creep upwards above 4,000 feet, but then slip back down below 4,000 feet as we get out toward Cook Inlet, Kodiak Island, and the Kenai Peninsula. Southeast will see freezing levels anywhere from above 6,000 to above 8,000 feet, and then getting out toward the Aleutians, freezing levels will be down near or a bit below 2,000 feet, especially throughout the central and eastern Aleutians. Icing conditions, potential for icing exists above 4,000 feet along the North Slope, and generally above 5,000 to 8,000 feet north of the Yukon River in central areas, and then dropping south along the coast. South central areas generally above 9,000 feet, though there could be some lower pockets there around the Kenai and the mouth of Cook Inlet, and then back out toward the eastern and central Aleutians above 5,000 feet. Looking at the upper levels, jet stream, we have 3 low pressure circulations, one over the West End Seward Peninsula, another over the Gulf of Alaska, and another out toward the central Aleutians. And as we drop on down, these systems are vertically stacked. Strongest winds are over the southeast panhandle, where we could see winds at the mid-level 9,000 feet, generally around 35 to 45 knots. Upwards to 35 knots there in the west and northwest of the Seward Peninsula. And then as we get down toward the Aleutians, we'll see circulation the backside of that in the west end of the 35 knots. And then finally, getting down to the 3,000 foot level, we still have that low pressure circulation over the Gulf of Alaska, with lighter winds near the surface and upwards to 3,000 feet, not much over 25 knots. And then back out along the northwest coast and Bering Strait, we are looking at winds out of the east-northeast at 40 to 45 knots. And then finally, bringing it down, look at turbulence, surface to 4,000 feet there in the northwest and over St. Lawrence Island. And along and just west-northwest of the Alaska range, the upper Kuskokwim River basin, we could see surface to 8,000 feet and then surface to 10,000 feet there in the southeast, especially around Ketchikan. And that does it for your flying weather.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder, joined once again by the science liaison of GINA, Eric Stevens. GINA, of course, is the Geographic Information Network of Alaska, based up at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And GINA is all about satellites, and Eric is always here to tell some really cool stuff about satellites. Now, the last time you were here, we talked about how the weather satellites can see clouds and what's under the clouds, but you're telling me that satellites can do a lot more, even protect the general public with aviation safety information.
That's right. There's one particular aspect of satellites we're going to talk about today that might not be immediately obvious, and that is detecting things in the atmosphere that are not clouds, that are not snow, not rain, but rather a hazard that can happen here in Alaska, and that is volcanic ash.
Of course.
When a volcano goes off, puts ash in the air, this is of course a hazard to the public if the ash were to fall on the ground in accumulating amounts.
Sure.
Additionally, while the ash is in the air, and this is the more frequent hazard, is it's a hazard to aviation because you cannot fly an airplane into volcanic ash without great risk. Worst case scenario, the ash gets into a jet engine, wrecks the engine, kills the engine, and now you have an airplane flying with no engines. It won't fly for long. So aviators need to avoid that ash. How do you avoid the ash? You have to know where it is by identifying it with a satellite image and perhaps predicting then where the ash will flow with the overall weather patterns. Satellites are so important for identifying when a volcano goes off and then tracking the ash after the volcano injects the ash into the atmosphere.
Now, are you talking about seeing the heat signature or a huge volcanic plume with a cloud that we're used to seeing in the really pretty pictures of any Alaska volcano that's erupted recently, Redoubt, for example? Or are we talking about the really fine details? Because this is polar orbiting satellites, the ones that are very low to the ground, right?
The geostationary satellites can do some detection. The polar orbiters, like you say, they're closer to the Earth. They give the even better view. In answer to your question, I would say all of the above. A heat signature from a volcano going off with all the heat that comes with the eruption, that can be identified in infrared imagery. We've got images from the Kamchatka Peninsula. That's the far eastern part of Russia on the western side of the Bering Sea, loaded with volcanoes. You know, Alaska has plenty of volcanoes of its own. We can also be affected when a volcano goes off in Kamchatka, say, and then the weather carries that ash toward Alaska from the west. You can see the infrared heat signature, like you say. Also, the ash in the air can be detected by doing some sophisticated channel differencing within the satellite data. You can find the identification of sulfur dioxide, say, that's a component of the volcanic emission, and you can trace this with the satellite imagery. Sometimes volcanoes go off that haven't gone off before, and we're not expecting them to go off. Say if there's no seismometers around a given volcano that hasn't gone off in 100 years, you might not be expecting it to go off. In the satellite imagery, since satellites can be globally comprehensive, that might be the first sign that you have that a volcano in an unexpected area is going off.
So it's a good backup system.
Right, right. And people are working all the time on automating the interrogation of satellite data by computers to provide a first alert to a human, so the software will say, we think this might be important. Human, go take a closer look. Because the people are still the best way to interrogate the imagery, but the planet's a big place, and we can't be looking everywhere all the time, so the software helps give a first cut. And then in Alaska, there's a special kind of surprise angle where the satellites are helpful, and that is the Katmai eruption of 1912. Huge eruption. There is still somewhat of a moonscape out there in southwest Alaska where all this ash is laying on the ground. And sometimes a strong weather pattern comes along where we have roaring northwest winds that go across the Alaska Peninsula there. and can actually pick some of this ash up off the ground. No volcano is going off. This was more than 100 years ago that volcano actually blew. So you're not going to see a heat signature like we were discussing. There will be no seismic signature of a volcano going off. So those data sets, they'll say, oh, no problem. But you can see in some of the satellite imagery this ash, as it's called, resuspended. When the wind comes along, picks it up, the ash can be lofted a few thousand feet in the air just with the wind. And an airplane flying into that plume is exposed to some danger. So we need to track that ash to provide guidance to aviators that you don't want to be flying here at these elevations in this area. We've got some imagery of the resuspension, and you can see the wind blowing strongly from the northwest, picking up the ash and blowing it down to the southeast. And so that's another, perhaps not immediately obvious hazard of volcanic ash. Katmai is the gift that keeps on giving, for sure.
Very good. So we've got satellites that can help us understand the weather from the past and the immediate past. And we talked last time about how that's feeding into the forecast modeling to help improve predictions. But now they're also protecting the general public with aviation-sensitive information and watching volcanoes, whether they're erupting or maybe have erupted in the past, and finding the left-behinds from those volcanic events there. So really impressive stuff. Eric, thanks so much for joining us again today. And you're a gift that keeps on giving from the satellite community, so thanks a lot, and we hope to have you back again soon. Again, Eric Stevens with GINA at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And if you'd like to check out any of the information that Eric has shared with us again today, you can do that very easily by going to www.gina.alaska.edu. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder, and thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back, and we'll start off the marine weather segment with today's sea ice edge. You can see down there in the lower left of your screen, some open water has really expanded now around St. Lawrence Island and in through Norton Sounds and up toward the Bering Strait. And we'll continue to see melting and the breakup of the sea pack ice as we go up along the northwest coast, and especially still quite a bit of ice there along the Arctic coast, but at least the northern coastline is starting to see a few areas open up. At least some of the openings there developing where the river mouths are, as we continue to see the river breakup occurring now in the final stages there across the north slope. So Wednesday's marine forecast across the southeast inner waterways. We are looking at south winds of 15 knots, waves 3 or 4 feet from Ketchikan north toward Juneau into Lynn Canal. And generally out of the south-southeast along the Gulf Coast with 15-knot winds and swells right around 7 feet. For the day, Thursday, we'll see winds pick up a little bit there, 20 to near 25 knots, the inner waterways from the south and southeast with waves of 3 to 5 feet. And along coastal areas, south to southeast winds right around 20 knots and waves 7 to 8 feet there along coastal areas of the Gulf. Across south central, look at winds, at least the inner waterways there, including Prince William Sound, the Cook Inlet there from Anchorage down toward Homer. Out of the north at 10 knots, waves a couple of feet, and then out over more of the open waters there of the northern Gulf, out of the northeast at around 15 to 20 knots off of the Kenai with swells around 7 feet. For Thursday then, northeasterly winds there up through portions of the Gulf and Prince William Sound as high as 20 knots off the Kenai and northeast of Kodiak Island, and swells around 5 feet, whereas the inner waterways in getting up through Cook Inlet, we are looking for winds to be a little more variable north and out of the south-southeast at 10 knots and swells about 3 feet. Out across the Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island will see northeasterly winds upwards to 15 knots and waves of 4 to as much as 7 feet there in through the Gulf. And then on the Bering side, east-southeast winds 15 to 20 knots and waves 2 to 3 feet. For Thursday then, look for winds to be out of the northeast on the Gulf side, 15 to 20 knots, swells 4 to 7 feet. A little more variable south to westerly at 10 to 15 knots on the Bering side, and waves still only around a couple feet. In across the Aleutians, the eastern Aleutians ahead of a little trough and the low pressure that's passing south of that area is going to have winds out of the east ahead of it, 10 to 20 knots, shifting around to the northwest and north on the backside of the low. Pacific side, we are looking at swells 3 to 4 feet and generally 2 to 4 feet on the Bering side. And into Thursday, we'll see winds trying to turn more around toward a westerly component. West to northwest winds, central and western Aleutians, with swells generally of 4 to 7 feet. And then going up here through the west coast, winds will be out of the north, approaching gale force there off of Hooper Bay and south of St. Lawrence Island, with swells of 7 feet. Otherwise lighter elsewhere. And then for Thursday, winds will be out of the north, generally in the open waters there of the Bering at 20 knots, waves 4 to 5 feet. And then a little more variable there around Norton Sound. Finally, along the Arctic coast, winds will be out of the east-northeast at 20 to 25 knots. And as we slide on down the northwest coast there, especially Cape Lisburne down toward Wales and Nome, in those areas, we could see winds as high as 25 to 30 knots out of the northeast and north. And then on Thursday, look for easterly winds along the Arctic coast at 25 knots. Still areas of ice there, but the ice is breaking up there off the northwest coast and Bering Strait, with winds out of the northeast to north at about 25 knots. And a quick check of the surface weather map on Wednesday. We'll see that one area of low pressure there over the western and interior. And a little tighter gradient rotating around there across the northwest coast down toward the Seward Peninsula. And then the area of low pressure that's south of the eastern Aleutians, that will continue to work its way eastward. And as we go into the day on Thursday, we do expect then for winds to pick up a little bit there out over the western Gulf of Alaska, while relaxing along the west coast, even though low pressure will continue to lag there. And that low pressure will bring a little breezier conditions there, especially to the Gulf Coast as we head through the end of the week. So that does it for our show. Thank you for watching, and welcome to the month of June.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.